little bio of Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen. This is actually really fascinating. He was born in Cairo, Egypt, to a Sephardic father from Syria and an Ashkenazi mother from Odessa, Ukraine. Wow, very cool.
You won't see many of those.
That's very cool, right? He attended NYU and Harvard for undergraduate studies in pre-med. He attended medical school in New York and graduated with a specialty in sports medicine and foot surgery. He practiced medicine and taught Judaism on the campus of the University of Miami. I'm actually from Florida, so I'm a big University of Miami supporter. He taught there actually for Aisha Torah and Or Sameach. He formed a very deep friendship in early part of 2000s with Rav Shalom Arush, author of The Garden of Emunah and many other titles. Also, if you're into Gedalia Fenster loves Rabbi Arush. Yes. So
I spent 9 Umans with Gedalia.
Yes.
Gedalia is supposed to be in Brooklyn, I think, next week.
Yes.
Next Thursday.
Yes, exactly. So I hear about Rabbi Arush a lot, and I've also read a lot of his books, so I would love to hear more about that. That's amazing. Rabbi Arush would go on to profoundly affect Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen in his dating and Shalom Bayis hashkafa. He moved back to New York City to arrange proper shidduchim for his daughters and continued teaching al limudei kodesh subjects in various yeshivot with an emphasis on how to date properly. He temporarily retired from medicine 6 years ago to focus completely on educating the Jewish public on how to date successfully. This is amazing. Ready for this fact? He has over 500 shirim on dating and Shalom Bayis on Torah Anytime. He has published over 400 articles on dating and Shalom Bayis. He has mentored thousands of men and women in dating and marriage. He has had the zechut to facilitate over 1,500 shidduchim. Wow, these numbers are incredible. He currently teaches so I'm a Baal Tshuva, so I don't know.
Limudei Kodesh.
Limudei Kodesh.
Jewish studies.
Is that right? Limudei Kodesh?
Jewish studies.
Okay. In the morning and serves as a dating and Shalom Bayis mentor to Klal Yisrael. So let's give it up for Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
I'm really honored to be here. I would normally dive into dating stuff. I'm not going there. Not tonight. So I thought because it's Rosh Chodesh, it's very interesting. I was working with a Baal Tshuva from Philadelphia on the phone today, and we were learning about what is the connection of Klal Yisrael to the moon. Well, the moon renews itself every 8.5 days. And we have that connection in that we can renew ourselves as well. Klal Yisrael is compared to the moon because if we think we're down and out, well, guess what? Within a few days, the moon recycles itself and is all there, it's all full again. So one of the things we want to take from this is that we can use Rosh Chodesh as an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm starting brand new. And I could try a different tact and a different approach. So I put together some things that have given me inspiration in my life, that have helped me tremendously, that I've used to help others. And Bezat Hashem will grow together. In the days of the Talmud, before starting a lecture, so what they call the Nasi or the Magid Shiur, the head of the academy, would tell a joke. So I think I'm going to go in the same direction and get us into a better, lighter mood. Moshe and Miriam retired in Miami. There was a leak under the sink, and they called in a handyman to deal with the leak under the sink. So there he is. He's working with the plumbing underneath the sink and the pipes, and it's dinner time. So Miriam says, "Sweetheart, let's go. I need you to come to the table." No answer. "My love, come on, the soup's getting cold." "Dear, would you like the steak, rare or well done?" So the guy is beside himself, this handyman. He pops his head from underneath the sink and he says, "Mrs. Goldstein, you always speak so lovey-dovey to him?" She looks at him, she says, "Son, I got to tell you something. I forgot his name, but I'm embarrassed to ask him." So let's not forget our names. Anyway, Zelig Pliskin is one of the great thinkers in Jewish philosophy, Jewish thought. He's one of the great Aisha Torah scholars. He writes something fascinating. He goes, in 1964, I read a poem that moved me greatly. It was written by the late Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler. Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler wrote a series of books called Michtav Miliyahu. He was the rabbi in England during World War II. He was a genius. He was a Talmud of the Chavetz Chaim. And he was brought to England from Eastern Europe to be able to give chizuk to England. So he started a kollel in a place called Gateshead. He would go on to stardom His mind is exceptional. His books are translated by a man called Aryeh Carmel, and it's the Michtav Milyahu series. He's a brilliant mind. And he wrote the following. Here's the English translation. The past is only memories. The future is but only illusory hopes. Focus on the present, for that is where your life really is, and it consists only of tests. I mean, this is, in my book, Kodesh Kodashim. It's Holy of Holies. What he's telling us is we get all troubled and confused about our past, and it's like a monkey in our back. And we need to know how to disconnect from it, especially since I'm talking to a crowd that's still, engaging in the dating world. So there's got to be a way that how do I re-look at things with a different, fresh perspective? And he writes the following. I first read this poem 45 years ago, and I reflect on how this poem could save so many of us from suffering needlessly. Much distress, he writes, comes from worrying about potential things that don't happen. But we work them up into our minds as if they're going to be happen. Or the worrisome event that may take place, that we just play it up. We need to plan for the future, that's appropriate, but without losing focus, that I need to enjoy what's in front of me now. Hashem wants us to enjoy this world. They say this story about Samson Raphael Hirsch when he was 93 years old, when he was living in Frankfurt am Main in Germany. He says to his Gabbai, pack up everything. He tells him, Yosef, we're going to the Swiss Alps. So the Gabbai looks at him and says, Rebbe, your age, 93? He goes to him, when I get up to Shamayim after 120, Hashem is going to look at me and he's going to ask me, did you enjoy my beautiful world, Shamshin? Did you visit the Swiss Alps? It's not a sin. Hashem wants us to enjoy this world. Obviously with the intent that it should help us to grow closer to Him. But we have to live in the present. That's critical. What you focus on expands. Your life challenge is to appreciate all that you can appreciate about the present. And to try to experience more joy in your present tefillos, in your Torah study. It's important. I was just telling you the story. My son had a midlife crisis today at 21. What happened? He is enrolled in one of the top yeshivas in America. It's in Elkins Park, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. Okay? It's almost impossible to get in. The rabbi only accepts 100 people, and they just built a $10 million campus. It's magnificent. Yeshiva of Elkins Park. It just opened. It was in the Heights. Rabbi Rabanowitz. He was in the Heights in Bennett Avenue. And then for a year, last year, they were up in the North Pole. They were in Tannersville, freezing their butts off. And then, while they were waiting for their campus to build out, I happened to have spoken this year, 2 days before Yom Kippur. So I wanted to pass by and say hello to my son. I was like floored. Magnificent, 10-acre campus. And he says to me, I don't want to go. What do you mean you don't want to go? This will be his 4th year, technically, since he finished high school. Abba, I wanted to go to Israel. I said, now? Israeli yeshivas are starting tonight. I mean, how do you expect to get in? Right? Well, I don't know. I want to go. My friends are there. I feel bad. All the 3rd and 4th year is usually spent in Eretz Yisrael. I said, Ovadia, I wish I could help you. This is not going to fly. So I called the Rosh Yeshiva. I said, he's having like a midlife crisis. What do we do about this? Right? He says, I'll try, but I don't think I can get him in at this stage in the game. So I just had a conversation with him outside. I said to him, this is how I spoke to him. I said, Avadia, he's crying. He said, I don't know, I don't want to go. Avadia, you have to understand something. You have the privilege to study Torah. You don't have to worry about paying a mortgage or a rent right now. You don't have to worry about life insurance. You don't have to worry about anything. Look at it as a great thing. I wish I could trade places with you. I would love to sit in yeshiva and study, immerse myself in Torah. Every 5 minutes that I get, I try to, but it's not so simple. You understand? So it's the perspective. I told him, don't look at it as a burden. Look at it as a pleasure to study Hashem's Torah, to have an opportunity to do so. How many people will trade places with you? So the key that the message that I want to send to us is here, is that let's live in the present. Let's enjoy the present. That's very, very important. Okay. In my personal life, this car changed everything about 16 years ago. This is how I got started, Rav Shalom Arush. I was originally a Talmud of one of the great rabbis of the 20th century, Rav Victor Miller. Since I was 12 years old, he moved into the Syrian community where I was raised, where I still live, and he became part of our life. And at 12 years old, while I was going to school, I stepped into a lecture that he gave, and he changed me forever. But he had passed away, and I sort of had a disconnect in my life for 5 years. I didn't have someone to really go to or a mentor. And I was living in Miami, and I went to visit Eretz Yisrael. I was at a bar mitzvah of a nephew when someone walked up to me, maybe 2006, and he says, "Sir, you got to read this book. This is at the Kotel. And it's in Hebrew, The Garden of Emunah." Someone else gives it to me in English. I have some time. We're staying at the Plaza Hotel. I start going through this book, and I said, wow, this man knows his beans. I had a little bit of introduction to this stuff with Rav Victor Miller, but I thought Rav Shalom Arush, who wrote the book, took it to the next level. And so when I came home to Miami, I lived in Miami Beach for 7 years. I really immersed myself in this, but it led to me developing a great relationship with a man called Laser Brody, who was at the time his English sidekick. And I called him up in 2006 and I said, "You guys should come to America." "Wow, you think they'd like us there?" I said, "Of course. I'll set up a committee. We'll take you guys in. We need this stuff like water, like oxygen." So, Baruch Hashem, I had the privilege to invite Rav Shalom Arush for the first time to America with Laser Brody, and then the revolution began. But the point I want to make is that gratitude is so fundamental to success in life. Gratitude can effect yeshuot, can bring salvations, can bring miracles when nothing else can. It opens doorways. But the key, here's the kicker. It's easy to say thank you. It's easy to say thank you when you got a raise, or you got the car of your dreams, or they just gave you a free trip to Cancun. No, that's not what it's about. That's good. It's saying thank you for what doesn't go your way. That's the key. That's the one lesson I want to teach you. If I could find my phone, I just remembered. Listen to this. I'm going to read something to you. I got an email last year that just blew me away. Give me a second. Okay, I'm going to find it. It's coming up soon. Oh no, hold it. It's 21. Here it is. Ready? Hi, Rabbi Cohen. I wanted to share my personal story with you, and I permit you to share it with other people. I was married for about 36 months with no children in sight, living in a very religious neighborhood in Israel, surrounded constantly by strollers and children that doesn't make it any easier. Additionally, the friends of mine who lived nearby were already pushing carriages and were well on their way there. Each month was another disappointment. It was the summer after Corona, and during that time I had taken refuge with listening to many classes from Torah Anytime. I decided to download many classes as a preparation for the holidays, and I came across some of the classes that you've been giving. I was listening to a class that you gave, which was geared to older singles, and you mentioned how one must thank Hashem for his troubles, or her troubles. Thank you, Hashem, that I'm still single. That's what you told that crowd. When I heard that, I immediately thought, I must thank Hashem that I don't have kids yet. But how can I say that? It's not true. I replayed that part of the shir and began to think about it. In seminary, they taught us all about thanking Hashem, and I was a good person at that. I was an expert at thanking Hashem. Sure, I could thank Hashem for everything in my life. I was healthy. I was married. Whoa. Living in Israel. However, to thank Hashem that I didn't have kids, I'm sorry, that I cannot do. The fact that I didn't have children was a mistake in this system. Right? I was meant to have kids. I mean, don't all couples have kids by their first anniversary, or at least well on the way? It just happens to be that I was in a car with my daughter, one of my married daughters this Sunday, and she tells me 2 of her friends in her high school class, she's 4 years out right now, were told to switch apartments because they haven't had kids yet. By the Rosh Yeshiva said, get out of here. So it's not a guarantee. Her 2 best friends, still doing IVF and all that. Both of them have been living in their apartments for over 4 years. Rosh Yeshiva Acham Yosef Raful, who's one of the geniuses of the world, he lives in Brooklyn, he said, get out, leave. So anyway, she says, It's an automatic. Isn't everyone supposed to have children? Thanking Hashem for difficulties shows much greater emunah than thanking Hashem for good things in life. It's easy to thank Hashem for goodness because it's obvious that it's for Him, but to thank Him for pain and suffering, and that shows that you believe that even this pain is from Hashem and must also be for the good. I turned this concept around in my mind and pondered it greatly. I decided that if Hashem wasn't giving me children yet, He must want something from me. I decided that I should start thanking Hashem every day for the fact that I don't have kids. The first time I said it, I felt like I was saying lies. But the more times I said it, the more I felt it to be true. After every tefillah or prayer, I said it followed by, thank you Hashem, and may you have mercy on me and grant me children one day. After a while, I felt at peace with my situation. I even started to see the good in it. For example, thank you Hashem that I don't have kids yet because I can get a decent night's sleep. Baruch Hashem. Just a few months after I started saying it, we had good news. And my mantra every day after davening is now, thank you Hashem that I'm expecting a baby. Now, B'chazdei Hashem, a year later, I hold my precious newborn and thank Hashem that now I do have a child. So you see, it works. Thank God, it works a lot. Let's go back to that. So again, I thought this in my life was a game changer. And I'm happy to get you guys copies. This is the thank you card that I say after Shachrit when I daven every morning. I think it's critical. And Rav Shalom Arush brings down an amazing story. He tells a story in the book Say Thank You and See Miracles about a man who was sterile, could not have kids. And he did something which was unconscionable. He got engaged and married to a woman without telling her. But guess what? She wasn't able to have children. And he didn't tell her. He didn't tell her. Guess what? The dear Kala had the same problem. She couldn't have kids either. And she didn't tell him. Well, you can't hide the fact once you get married. And a year or two goes by, 3 years, and nothing's working. And they had gone to all the doctors, and they said, there's no hope for you, for both of you. So, they went to see Rav Shalom Arush. And he said, 15 minutes every day, say, thank you Hashem, I can't have children. Both of you. So they said to each other, well, we tried the natural approach, we went to the doctors, we tried everything, it's not working. Let's listen to the rabbi. They listened. They ended up having 2 children. The power of gratitude, something which is really very special. Okay. Let me just go on. With gratitude, a person invokes what we call divine favor. Their prayers assume a special charm. And Hashem loves that. The more a person expresses gratitude, the more Hashem is willing to help that person. And it becomes a spiral to get more and more salvations. Hashem is not inclined to come to the aid of an ingrate. Indeed, He doesn't want to help them because they don't express thanks. Let me share an incredible story with you. What it means to say thank you. In Eretz Yisrael, there were 2 guys, after visiting Kever Rachel, it was her yortzai, they were trying to catch a lift back to Yerushalayim. In Israel it's called tramping. Tramping is to catch a lift, hitchhike. So a car stops and offers them a lift. And they hop in the back, these 2 guys, and I guess they were yeshiva students or kollel, and they're wondering, with our meager income, how will we ever buy apartments in Israel? And the driver who picked them up is listening to their conversation. And he says, let me tell you my story. This is amazing. He says, my father worked for the Israel Broadcasting Association, a television channel. And in order to be able to just supplement the income at night, he was the maitre d', the head maitre d' in a wedding hall. And in Israel, have you ever been to an Israeli like a wedding or bar mitzvah? It's a whole different spin. My brother-in-law, I remember, had a bar mitzvah in Israel. This is what they do. They bring out a cake. And they want more pomp and circumstance in Israel. When the cake comes out, they put sparklers on the cake. Right? And sometimes they line up the champagne cups a certain way and they pour from the top and it goes down just beautifully. Well, it was a wedding that night and they brought the cake out. And sometimes when the maitre d' lights the candles, it doesn't go. So what he does is, for convenience, he keeps a little bottle of lighter fluid, and he squirts and he goes zap, 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 and he's able to light it. That night, he was having trouble getting the sparklers to light. So he pulls out his trusty lighter fluid and goes zap, zap. Unfortunately, a big fire starts, and two little children are playing right next to that cake, and they go right into that cake. The girl, who was 8 years old at the time, is on fire. Everyone is paralyzed. They don't know what to do. Baruch Hashem, thank God, the photographer of the event was a former IDF officer who did Golani Brigade missions. He pulls the tablecloth off of one of the tables. He wraps the girl in the tablecloth and he's able to douse the flames, but not until she has third-degree burns all over her body. And the man's saying, the driver's saying, you have to understand my father. He had been a special forces officer in IDF. I know, because my father-in-law is intelligence in IDF. So I know what these guys do. Tells me very clearly what these guys. So he broke down and cried. My father, he said, never cried in his life. He was a tough guy. He was a sabra, a hardened army officer. He took full responsibility for what happened, and he said, I want to go with the Magen David Edom van to the hospital, where he was crying to us, I feel so bad, what I do. And the parents are trying to assuage him and say, it's okay, it's not your fault, it'll be fine. Well, he said, my father was so taken by that story. He was a Chiloni, he was a secular Jew, that was a wake-up call to my father. And he said to himself, maybe I need to examine my faith. And that was his introduction to becoming a Baal Tshuva and returning to Judaism. And he said, he had asked me over the years, are you interested? You want to become religious? Nah, Abba, it's not for me. You want to be religious? It's fine. I'm not drinking from the Kool-Aid. So anyway, the years went by, and I needed a job. I got out of the IDF, I needed a job, so I found myself a job. There was a franchise of stores that sell chocolates and candies. Mitukim zeshe lanu. This is our sweets. That's how it's in Hebrew. I got a job. The owner happened to have been a person also. His name was Cheskel Sharon, and he was a Baal Tshuva himself. And he tried to get me to become a little bit more frum, but I wasn't interested. So he says, you know what? You're getting on in years. Time for you to get married. You know, we have a very nice receptionist who works the back end. Her name is, I forgot her name is Yehudit, right? I'll set you guys up. You're not religious, she's not religious, and you'll make it work, right? So they start going out, and it clicks, and they're going very well. It got to the point where he wants to propose to her, and he says to her, this is an amazing thing. I have a question for you. I understand you don't keep Shabbat or anything. Why do you dress like you're out of Bnei Brak, with sleeves up to here and skirts all the way down? And she says, I was involved in a major accident when I was younger. I had third-degree burns all over my body. I was taken to a special hospital in Paris, but they could only do so much, so I can't show my skin. He turns white as a ghost. He says to her, was that at Sasson V'Simcha Hall in Yerushalayim? Yeah. I don't know if you ever want to talk to me ever again, because my father was the maitre d'. She says, no, if Hashem wants it to be, it's because he purposely wanted us to meet. I want to see your father, it's been 20 years. And they go back, and the father was so taken to see her. I hadn't seen her since that episode. They get engaged, they get married, and they themselves go embarking on their own path back to Yiddishkeit. Meanwhile, they're living with her mother. After a year, he says to his wife, honey, you know, I feel bad, we're imposing on mom. We have to find our own spot. But I know it's tough. Economically, I'm hustling, you're hustling. What are you worried about? Listen to this, she tells him. After the episode, there was a lawsuit. My parents sued the hall. Yeah. Collected 4 million shekels and bought me a $1 million shekel apartment in Rehavia. King George! Does it get better? Right? And it's waiting for us. And that's what the man said to the couple, the guys behind them. Very important. Have gratitude, having the right approach. He told them nothing to worry about. Hashem's got your back. Okay. Your soul is on a mission from Hashem. You're unique. You're only the person now, and that's the person you're always going to be. The Torah tells us, what does Hashem want from us? Ma Hashem rotzeh mimecha. Hashem asks Moshe. And that's what we have to ask ourselves. Rabbi Miller always told us something. You're put on this world to perform for God, whatever that may be. In whatever capacity that is. As a mother, could be as an architect, could be as an executive assistant. That's serving God and doing the best at it and becoming close to Him because of that. And seeing the beauty in that. Our mission is to always have an optimistic perspective on it. So there are the 9 principles for happiness and joy. Number 1, like we said, think gratefully. What are 5 things that happened to me today? Baruch Hashem, I just got parking. I didn't dream I was going to get parking. I turned on 96, bam, I found a spot. I was ready to go into a lot. Thank God. Number 2, my son's going to catch the last bus to Philadelphia in an hour. He make it back to yeshiva. It's our responsibility to unearth all these good things that are happening to us. You understand? On a daily basis, from small to big. Number 2, I speak joyfully. Auto-suggestion. Right? I make sure that when I pick up the phone, I put a smile on my face. Because I know that's reflecting on how I speak to the person. So it's important. 3, I assume it's going to be good. It's all mind training. Whatever it may be, the event will be good, the meeting will be good, this lecture will be good. So I'm looking at it with the glass half full. 4, I strive for meaningful goals. 5, I see myself being the way I wish to be. I can envision what I want, and I can see it. Think it and it'll be it. 6, I focus on solutions. I was at a medical conference 2 weeks ago. Yes, I'm coming back into medicine next year. I did 5 years of this stuff, but I'm going to go half-half now. I miss my surgery, I miss my patients. But anyway, so I was at a medical conference and I saw something fascinating from a Gentile. Very, very smart. He goes, this is 3 weeks ago in Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's a fact, we can't change it. If it's a problem, there must be a solution. I said, wow, that's amazing. If it's a problem, there must be a solution. And the point is here, I focus on solutions. 7, I never let challenges bother me, but I use them to develop my character. Your tests, like the first thing we spoke about today, this life is world. Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, one of the great Renaissance writers who wrote The Path of the Just. The first thing he says, this world was created for challenges. And Rabbi Victor Miller would say, your responses to the challenges are your grades for the next world. That's your report card. So that person ticks you off in the subway. Are you going to insult or curse them, or are you going to say, okay, just walk away? It's all about challenges and how we respond to them. 8, I consistently access positive states. My awesome brain stores my best states, and that's important. So we have to have an archive of good memories. And 9, I smile and I wave to mirrors. I like that one. Yeah. Okay, a couple of more and we'll close it out. Some of the things that really left me very inspired in my life. Leave everyone feeling better about themselves. When they have a conversation with you or walk away from you, she's such a pleasure to talk to. She's such a breath of fresh air. She doesn't burden me with her complaints, and nobody wants to hear it. This is what society we live in. We have to learn. So okay, you have to have your coffee clutch person. I get it. It's very important. But have a Dvar Torah to share with someone. Have a great thought. Leave people inspired. And that affects you more than affecting them. That's important. Teach yourself, this is self-explanatory, to see the rose, not the thorn. It's so easy in our world of negativity, but just get on a cell phone, see what's going on Fox and CNN and all that stuff. It's a negative world. We don't want to get trapped into that mindset. We want to think positively. And then this one, Whoa, okay, it's raining wisdom here. Give me a second. This one I love. We've heard that expression, especially our children. It's not fair, right? It's not fair. Okay, this world is not fair. It really isn't. It's a little bit cynical, but listen to what the author has to say. My grandfather immigrated to America, leaving his whole family in Europe. All his brothers and sisters and their children, including uncles, aunts, and cousins, suffered hunger, deprivation, war, and the Holocaust. I didn't. It's not fair. I should have, right? There are millions of illiterates who never will know the joy of a book or the pleasure of a letter. They're cut off from the world of thought. I'm not. It's not fair. There are millions who go to sleep hungry every night. I don't. It's not fair. There are millions who don't have my health, my parnasa, my family, or prestige. I do. It's not fair. If everything in the world were really fair, you and I and everyone else in the world would have 3 slices of bread daily. That's all you'd be allowed to have. Clothing, 1 dress, and 1 pair of pants. I counted yesterday, I kid you not, 13 overcoats my wife owns by the front door, and growing. Housing, 1 room for your whole family if life was fair. Phone, 1 phone shared by 200 families. Car, 1 car would be shared by 500 families.
Where are these statistics? I'm just curious, where are these stats coming from?
This is Avi Shulman. He was one of the great minds of Torah and Sorah. He wrote a book. I gotta get you the name. If you call me, I'll get you the name.
Population by what?
I'm saying, like, how do you get, like, these
I
statistics?
think it's probably dividing up the population by the available number of phones and cars.
You could probably go to the United Nations and pull this stuff up. Yeah. And so the very next time you hear someone or yourself say it's not fair, ask, would you really be happy if everything was fair? And how fortunate we are. And not only that, but we as Jews are on the top of that echelon. Okay, I want to skip this because I don't think it's germane to my conversation tonight.
How do you say that the Jews are the top echelon? Just by virtue of the fact that most Jews are educated and have some basis for education?
It's very interesting. I was in Deal this Sunday night.
Oh, very well.
I was in Deal, which is a gorgeous place, and one of my guys got engaged. My guys got engaged 2 years. I mentored this fellow from 0 to 60, all the way. And I was very happy for him. And there, I met someone on the fly. Heather had introduced me as having been born in Cairo. And he told me that he had gone back 3 times. And he wasn't born there. His parent, I know what happened. His father and my father were in school together in the Alliance in Egypt. In Egypt, you speak English, French and Arabic. So my mother speaks French fluently. I did at one time. I forgot, but I don't use it as much as I used to. And my father and he were in the Alliance together. I said, yeah, my father and you they used to love to joke around. And they both passed on. And he's telling me, he went back to visit. His 2 brothers were born in Egypt, like me, but he wasn't. He was an American-born boy. My mom in his hospital. He says, I was there, and I'm speaking to the local Arabs. I said, what's the city like now, Cairo? Yeah, at the time, it was like the Mecca of the Arab world. Music came from there. There was a lot of commerce, scholarship. He says, I spoke to an Arab on the street. He goes, when you guys left, the place went to crap. And that's what usually happens. You know what I'm saying? I remember, after medical school, one of my friends, and I was a religious guy, was from Long Island. His parents retired in Spain on the coast. And we went to visit them. In order to make a phone call, we had to go like couple of miles inland, probably better by now. This is 1985, 86. And I said, the curse of the Spanish Inquisition is still there. It was like very interesting. It was completely undeveloped. But the point is, we're trying to say is that we have to be very fortunate for what we have and to be always constantly grateful for it. You don't fail when you fall unless you fail to get up. I had the pleasure of studying when I was already as a doctor in the mornings in a place called Yeshiva Chaim Berlin. Yeshiva Chaim Berlin The Rosh Yeshiva was Yitzchak Hutner, and in the 1950s and 60s trained most of the rabbis that really literally populate the Midwest. He sent them all out. You handle Tennessee, you do Chicago, you do Milwaukee. He gets a letter in the 1960s from one of his students lamenting about how he's not living up to his expectations of life. When I was at the rabbinical college, he tells him, I had such aspirations and such goals. I thought I was going to be a star. I look at myself now. It happens to all of us. I don't feel like I'm going anywhere in life, and I don't feel like I'm really progressing or succeeding. And he says to him, he writes him a letter. He says, do you think that the Chafetz Chaim became the Chafetz Chaim when he was born? Like he came out fantastic, he never spoke Lashon Hara? Do you know how many times he spoke Lashon Hara until he became the Chafetz Chaim? Do you know how many times Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik, why you failed until he became who you became? Do you realize that no one comes out of the womb perfect? The mistake that people make is that there's a pasuk that says, Sheva Pamim Nafal Tzadik V'kam. 7 times the tzaddik fell and he got up. Wrong! Wrong. Where do you put the comma? Say it like this. Sheva Pamim Nafal. 7 times he or she fell. Tzaddik V'kam. You get up, you're a tzaddik. But everyone thinks, he says, the world misreads the pasuk. Everyone thinks, oh, it's meant to say 7 times the righteous one fell and got up. No. 7 times he or she fell and then the righteous one got up. You become a tzaddik or tzaddiket because you get up. But it's available to all of us. We don't have to be born that way. And that's the message he sent it to him. He said, because I hear what you're writing me in your letter, I feel like life is not only by the lush meadows of what's going right, it's the struggles that we deal with in life. As long as you don't get up again, and you don't let yourself sit on the floor, you can automatically attain that righteous, status. Don't worry about what's ahead. Just go as far as you can see now, and from there you'll be able to see further. Again, it points into the comment that we made that live one day at a time. That's very important. Live one day at a time and focus on what's in front of us today.